406.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the 411 from 406. My name is Chewie, and I'm joined once again by my brother from another mother, Mr. Pip. How are you, sir?
Woohoo! I'm happy to be here, sir. I'm excited. I've got my podcast brain on. I've freshly showered just for you.
Thank you.
Just having gotten out of softball and dirty diamonds and all that stuff, I had to clean myself up a little bit to be presentable. So, yeah, I'm excited, man. What's going on?
I'm thrilled that we're together tonight because like we were and then we weren't and then we were again. So I'm glad this is going to be episode 92. We are marching slowly but surely towards that century mark, which is fucking awesome.
Oh, it's so exciting. I cannot wait. And I'm so jazzed that we've been able to keep this thing going for so long because it's my release for the week or every couple weeks when we get a chance to do this. Like no matter how shitty the week has been, if work is tough or the kids are assholes or whatever's going on, doesn't matter. This is like the one place where I can recharge that battery. So it's so much fun.
So to that point, since we have recorded last, we've crossed kind of a milestone. We've crossed we've crossed a milestone. So the very first episode of this podcast, do you have any idea when it was? I started it during COVID. So that'll give you a little bit of a giveaway.
I was going to say COVID, but I don't know, maybe like April of 2020.
Very close. I started at March 18th, 2020. Okay.
Ooh, nice.
Now, so very close. Now, the first episode that you joined me on was episode 15.
Okay.
And it was May 30th, 2020. So we just crossed our 4-year anniversary of this podcast doing it together, which I think is really fucking cool. I thought, yeah,
that's amazing. Well, congratulations to you because you started this whole thing. I just sort of tagged on a couple episodes in so that I could talk nerd with you along with all of what you were doing there. So that's awesome, man. That's super exciting. What a nerdy thing to be proud of, but hey, I'm so excited about it. Who gives a shit? That's awesome.
I thought that was really cool. So yeah, I was looking at the dates. I'm like, oh shit, like we haven't recorded since the last podcast we recorded. Of course, now I've lost it. Let me take a look here when it was
3 or 4 weeks ago, maybe.
Yeah, it was something like that. Yeah, and it was but again, it was before May the 30th. So yeah, I posted on the 26th. We actually recorded on May the 9th. So yeah, so we've
yeah, that's a long time.
So yeah, so we're over a month, which is not great, but again, kind of what seems like par for the course, especially in the summer. Speaking of summer, how is summer treating you thus far? The girls are out of school and chaos is ensuing.
Oh my God. I don't know what happened, but when I was a kid, summer was the greatest thing in the world. As an adult, it is a fucking nightmare sometimes.
Yes.
Like, I mean, I still love it. I love the weather. I love the activities and getting outside and doing all the stuff. But man, my kids are jacked up to the nines. They are all over the place. They are driving me nuts. It's tough. That part is difficult. And it's very sad for me because summer holds a very good place in my heart. My birthday's in the summer, as is yours. Just had my birthday actually, which is a fun little milestone so far this summer. Yeah, so but it's really difficult because like the kids are staying up all hours and they are dramatically affected by lack of sleep. And so, it's just one emotional meltdown after another until it becomes my own personal emotional meltdown. So it's kind of all over the place. But I will say something I have to do a little bit of a humble brag about, and I'm so excited to just talk about this. I got the unbelievable privilege to be a guest DJ, the last DJ, as they call it, on Tom Petty Radio. And I got to whip out all my podcasting chops to try to perfect the one and only chance that I will ever probably have to really pay tribute to one of my favorite singer-songwriters of all time. So I reached out to Tom Petty Radio because they do this thing every once in a while called The Last DJ, where they get people to pick their 5 favorite Tom Petty songs, and they record introductions to these songs, and then they send them in, and then they play them on the radio. And so out of nowhere, one day, a couple months ago, I just sent him an email and said, "Hey, I'd love to do this. I know I could do a great job. I've got all the recording equipment. Here are the 5 songs that I would like for you to play. Let me know." And I didn't hear anything from him for a couple months. Didn't expect to ever hear anything back. And out of nowhere, I got an email with a couple of attachments, one of them being a release form from SiriusXM Radio saying that they would absolutely never consider paying me for anything that I'm doing, which is fine. And the other one being production pieces. So all this script work that they wanted me to read off, like, here's how you talk about your first song, here's how you do the lead in, here's some other things that we want you to talk about. And so I recorded myself using the microphone and using GarageBand and all the stuff, all the expertise that I've gained over the years since COVID doing this podcast. And I sent it in, and I'll be damned. The week after my birthday, I had 5 episodes of me airing on Tom Petty Radio. And it was the coolest thing I think I've ever done. It was amazing.
Dude, that is awesome. Like when you posted that, I think I saw it on Facebook. I, I was so happy for you because I know what a huge Tom Petty fan you are, and that's awesome. I have not had an opportunity to listen to you. Do you have a recording of it? Do you?
I don't have a recording, but if you
Yeah,
have a Sirius XM
I
subscription,
don't. That's my problem. I
okay. Well,
don't. Yeah,
I plan on trying to find a way to scrape the audio from the recording because you can listen to it on demand on the SiriusXM app.
that's awesome. I wonder, did that release by chance prohibit you from like, could we put that recording on the podcast?
I don't know how that works, to be honest. Probably, well, so I mean, I have my recordings, like the recordings of my voice and my voiceover.
Yeah,
So in theory, I could put that on. I don't think I could put on their songs because that would be flagged pretty quickly for copyright. So, but yeah, I mean, I could
all
maybe
right,
put something together there, but it was really fun. It was a great
that's cool.
experience. I had a lot of people reach out. Your brother was the first person to reach out to me and say, "Hey man, I heard you on the radio. That was so cool." And there was really nothing more cool than seeing my name on the XM radio, on the
That's
Sirius
really
XM
cool.
radio. It said Matt Pippinger, Tom Petty Radio, the last DJ. So I snapped a picture of it. It's on my Facebook page. And it's just like one of those once in a lifetime things that I just don't think I'll ever get a chance to do again. And I was super psyched.
That's really cool. So it's funny. My brother Mark, he listens to that station regularly.
Hmm.
So he reached out to me. He's like, "Dude, did you see this?" I was like, I had no idea. So yeah, like he totally just heard that, I think, like organically, because he listens to that he's a big Tom Petty fan as well. So I think he listens to that station pretty regularly. That's awesome. I'm really happy for you.
It was so much fun.
That's super cool. Yeah, that's super
Anytime you
cool.
get to pay tribute to somebody that you love and respect so much, it's just such a great honor. And I don't
Yeah,
think there's a wider audience than that, right? Like people literally around the world got to hear my voice talk about Tom Petty, and I shouted out Deer Creek many times, and that was super fun. So it was a great experience, and
that's really
very
cool.
thankful to the great people at Tom Petty Radio for hooking me up there.
That's really cool. Let's see. I did have one question I wanted to ask you
Yeah.
before we actually have a topic tonight, but before we get into our topic, I have seen so much press, so many stories on my social feeds about Star Wars Acolyte.
Mm.
I haven't watched it. Nearly all of the press that I've seen has been overwhelmingly negative. I just wanted to get, like, are you seeing the same negativity? Have you watched it? Is it warranted? I don't know. We have not talked about this because
No.
you're looking at me like, fuck you. I have no idea. But anyways, like I'm just curious. Like, are you seeing the same kind of things that I am?
I haven't seen that, but I also know that Star Wars, is such a polarizing thing at this point. It doesn't surprise me that people are hating on it everywhere. So I can say that I have watched the first 3 episodes of it just because I'm a consumer and I consume. And as much
Yeah.
as I'd like to lament about how Star Wars has passed us all by, I'm still going to check out new content whenever it comes out. I'll say it's fine. I'd say it's perfectly okay. There's been nothing that has been offensive about it. I mean, they use tropes, but Star Wars has always done that. So I can't really start faulting them for that now. But I mean, it's all right. It's not exactly what I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be a little bit more Old Republic and more about the Jedi. I mean, it involves Jedi, but it's not really about the Jedi, at least not yet, in my opinion. So we'll see where it goes. I wouldn't by any means say don't watch it. I think it's
Okay.
fine. It's perfectly okay, but I also wouldn't get your hopes up. It's if I had to compare it, I would say it's probably better than the Book of Boba Fett, but not as good as the Mandalorian. Somewhere in there. And
Okay.
and I don't know where Obi-Wan fits there. I'm still sort of on the fence about that. That has way too much nostalgic value
Yeah.
to be able to properly place that maybe where it belongs. But I mean, I think Acolyte's fine. It
Where,
just doesn't blow me away.
okay. So where's that set though? Where is it set in the Star Wars timeline? Is it like way before anything we've seen before?
Yeah, I knew you were going to ask me that. It is before. Hold on.
Because
Acolyte.
and here's why I ask you that. One of the things that I keep hearing over and over again, I think it's about episode 3. And again, I haven't watched any of them, so I might be totally talking out of my ass. Was that like there's something in there that totally like changes the way we view everything that we've known before? I- Is that a valid?
I mean,
Again, I
if that's the case, I didn't pick up on it. I mean, there are
okay,
not any major twists like Darth Vader was, really a girl or something like that. Like
okay,
there's nothing that they do to completely flip the script on its head.
okay, okay,
Um but I mean it's fine. I can't remember. It is considered to be set in the High Republic era. I just don't know how many years before New Hope that is
okay.
technically.
But it is before. Is it after? Is it after the prequels?
E- No, I think it's before. I really I
Okay,
I should know. I don't know.
okay, that's fine.
When is
You
that?
know, that's fine. That's fine.
Yeah.
I tell you what, the fact that you're saying to me like it's not terrible is enough for me to like go watch it. You know what I mean? Like because you and I think have very similar taste when it comes to Star Wars, and we can be objective about Star Wars, and we both like love Star Wars, whether it's good or bad. You know what I mean? Like, and again, if you're telling me it's better than Book of Boba, but not quite up to Mandalorian, that's okay. That's watchable in my mind.
Yeah,
So
I definitely think that it's watchable. I just I got 2 words for you that might really kind of fry your brain. Wookiee Jedi.
oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, right.
All right.
So
Okay.
so yeah, it's interesting. They have teased that. I mean, they haven't teased it. It's coming. They haven't the next episode should go further into that, but they're sort of taking a Kill Bill type approach with it. And
Oh,
I don't mean
okay.
thematically. I mean
A lot of
like
flashbacks.
no,
But
what I mean is that like there's a character in there who's going after Jedi. Like basically I've
oh,
got these 4 Jedi that I need to kill for reasons that they are still unraveling as part of the story. So we don't know the whole story yet, but it's I mean it's kind of interesting. It doesn't scratch all the itches that I want to have scratched yet, but it's not over yet. So we'll see where it
okay.
goes. But no, I don't
How
think it's
many
horrible.
how many episodes is it going to be?
Great question. Not sure. I just know
Okay.
that we have gotten into 3 episodes so far. That's all that's been
Okay.
released.
Okay. All right. Totally changing gears. The other thing that I wanted to tell you about, we as a family, at least 4 of us, 3 of us, I don't know, a couple of us, sat down and rewatched Ghostbusters, not the newest one, but the Afterlife. Was that what it's called? The
Yeah.
one with the first one with Paul Rudd.
Yeah.
Okay. I thoroughly enjoyed that movie.
Nice.
I enjoyed it more than I remember enjoying it.
Yeah.
I know you and I have talked about it several times on the podcast, and I won't belabor any of the points. And going into it, because I think Link hadn't seen it, and so we wanted to, we were looking for something we could sit down and watch. And going into it, I remember kind of having this opinion of, it's like it was okay, but like the way they treated the old Ghostbusters, kind of blah blah blah. And that's still all true, right? Like they're just kind of totally shoehorned in there at the end. But I fucking loved that movie. Like
Really?
it was, I yes, I did. It was the first time that I'd seen it since it came out. I totally enjoyed it, and I'm pissed that I haven't gone back yet to see Frozen Empire. At this point, I'm gonna have to wait till it comes out on home. But yeah, I thought you would appreciate that. I thoroughly enjoyed it more than I did the first time I saw it. So
So let's talk about that a little bit because
yeah,
I'd like to know from your perspective. Like this is the not the first time you've seen it, as you said.
yeah.
What was it that really grabbed your attention? Like, can you sort of articulate the things that you saw that were like, wow, like I didn't really appreciate this the first time, but now I've got a better handle on it and I like what they're doing here.
I think as we talked about that film, so um going into any Ghostbusters movie in the 2020s as a 40 something year old guy, I think the only way that you can the first time through, the only time that you can look at those films is through the lenses of the original movies. 1984, like
Yeah.
Pete Venkman, Egon that kind of thing. And I think this second time I watched it, I already knew that they weren't going to be all that involved, right? At all. And so I wasn't really watching it through that lens anymore. I was just watching it through the lens of, hey, give me a ghost story, give me a Ghostbusters movie, but it doesn't necessarily need to be, Ray Stantz, Egon Spengler, Pete Venk, like that kind of thing. And I think when I kind of took that filter off of it, and I was able to just kind of enjoy it for the film that it was, it became just a much better film in my opinion, because I wasn't waiting for, oh, when's Ray going to show up or when's Pete going to show, like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I really think the first time I watched that movie, that's what I was
Yeah.
waiting for. Right. I
Right.
was like, okay, where is everybody? And like, you get a little bit of Ray, and you get a little bit of Egon, just like actually the other thing I will say is they did a really good job editing and cutting around the fact that Egon's actor was not alive in that movie. They did
Right.
an amazing job. I don't know who they used. I don't know if it was it his son? I don't know who was playing Egon in those ghost scenes, but they just did a really good job. Like I was if I'm comparing it to the way, and it's a little bit different situation, the way like The Last Jedi treated Carrie Fisher, right? That's again, it's a different scenario because they had footage that they were working with, but they just did a really good job with Ivan Reitman and like how they did that character after he was gone. It was like one of the best tributes that I can think of for an actor that has passed away, and they still try to insert him into a movie.
Yeah. I would agree with that. I think so your perspective on that is very valid. And I think I know that I have watched it since I saw it in the theaters. And I was very disappointed with I could not get over the disappointment with how they treated the original characters when I saw it the first time. When I watched it the second time, I felt a little bit better about what they were doing with it. I don't think it's a bad movie. I know that I have spoken at great length on this podcast alone about how mad I am about some of the decisions that were made, but I don't think it was a bad movie. I think it was like the way that it feels more like a Stranger Things episode, which is really cool. Not just because Finn Wolford is in it, but like it's it just feels like an upgraded version of a ghost story from the 80s, which is well done in that sense. I couldn't get over the when is Venkman coming on
Yeah,
screen? When is this happening? I could not get over that in the first watching. And that's maybe my fault as an OG Ghostbusters 1984 fan. I couldn't wait for that to happen, and it just didn't, and it was
yeah,
completely disappointing. But I agree with you in that there are so many uh, pretty redeemable qualities about that first movie, or sorry, about Afterlife specifically. Carrie Coon is the mom. I think she does a great job. Paul Rudd is well placed in that movie. He's very well
Perfect.
cast.
Yes.
Mackenzie Grace as the granddaughter of Egon, like she does a really good job with that as well. Some of the other characters are good. I mean, they did some weird stuff along the way, like they threw Annie Potts in there for reasons that I don't understand. I mean,
Right.
I like her as an actress, but like they just kind of tossed her into this random scenario, and her part in that story didn't make any sense. But I liked what they tried to do. So I agree with that. And now I'm dying that you haven't seen Frozen Empire yet, because like that is, I personally had a much more enjoyable time with that, because I think I was able to let go a little bit of what you were talking about and just enjoy it. And then I was pleasantly surprised because some of those OG Ghostbusters were much more involved in that
Were
story.
they? Okay. I have to correct myself. I said Ivan Reitman. I meant Harold Ramis. I apologize. Sorry.
It's okay. I was
Yeah.
going to edit it out, but you figured it out. So that's
Okay.
good. Yeah, it was Harold
So
Ramis, and it was yeah, you got that.
so so yeah, I do. And the good thing is my wife enjoyed watching it. My son enjoyed watching it. So when Frozen Empire is out, and maybe it is already, we will sit down and watch it, and I can report back and kind of let you know how that
Yeah,
goes. So
I hope you do, and I hope you enjoy it. I mean, it's still probably maybe the third best Ghostbuster movie. I mean,
okay,
it's funny because it's kind of like Terminator, in the sense that, Terminator is such a revered franchise, but really there are only two good
yeah,
movies in
yeah,
that franchise. So
yeah,
saying it's the third best Terminator movie is pretty
yeah,
high
yeah,
praise. I mean,
right,
well, I mean, it's kind of high praise, but at the same time, the bar is very low for some of those other
yeah,
ones, right? So
yeah. It's like you're the best of the worst.
yeah,
Congratulations,
yeah,
right?
you're the
Yeah,
king of the dipshits.
yeah. So, speaking of that, one of these days, I don't think we've done it. I really want to do uh sequels that are better than the original. I want to do that
Did we
podcast
not
because
do
it's
that? I thought we
I
did
know
something
we
along
did
those lines.
we did favorite sequels. I think we did favorite sequels.
Okay.
I don't think we ever did better than anyways. I
That's
if
got
we
to be
I'll
a
go
short list, though, right? Like,
well,
how
it's you're
many
right.
sequels are better
There's
than
not
the
many.
originals?
There's not many.
Especially if we eliminated Empire Strikes Back, right?
Well, that yeah, then it's a very short
Because
list. Yeah.
then we're
But
fucked. It's a top
yeah,
two list, not a top five.
right. So, well, so speaking of top five, we actually have a top five. It's been a while since we've done one, which I'm glad. I kind of now don't get me wrong, I love the bullshit. Just like let's chat, let's talk about WrestleMania, this, that, and the other thing.
Yeah.
But we've got a top five tonight. So the last time we did a top five
Ooh,
was
trivia.
episode 86, where we did top five movie soundtracks. All
Okay.
right. So that
Okay.
was that was back in January. Now we did do kind of a ranking podcast with Jeff Tyler where we talked about balance, but
Yeah.
that's not really a top five. So yeah, the last top five that we did was episode 86, where we talked about, like I said, top five movie soundtracks. This one is your topic, so I'm going to let you introduce it, and then I got a couple nuggets to tell you about before we kind of get into it.
Okay. Okay. So before I announce the topic for
Yes.
tonight, I will say that just out of shits and giggles, I plugged into ChatGPT. Hey, I'm on a podcast and I want to talk about a top five list, and here are the things that I talk about: video games and music and movies and wrestling and all this stuff. And you and I'm looking for ideas. Can you tell me some things to talk about? And you know what the number one answer they gave me? Top
No.
five favorite soundtracks. That was it.
Did it really?
And
Is
I
that right?
felt so vindicated at that point. I'm like, oh,
Wow.
fuck yeah, we totally nailed that. And there was actually one other one that we already did too, which was like top five 80s movies or something, or action movies or
Okay.
something along those lines. But I felt really good about that,
That's
that
pretty fucking cool. Yeah.
we beat Chat GPT on that. But yeah, so tonight, We had the very common exchange that we always have, which is like, hey, you want a podcast? And the other one's like, yeah, absolutely, of course. What are we gonna talk about? And then we're like, I don't know. What do you want to talk about? I don't know. What do you want to talk about?
7 hours goes by.
And then and we're like, all right. And then I usually it's me. I'm like, oh fuck it. Let's just talk about top five something. So tonight we are going to talk about our top five favorite video game franchises. Now, this is going to be super interesting. I don't know that a lot of my answers will be, you know, innovative or unexpected by any means, but I wanted to draw attention to some of those franchises. Like, I guess when I talk about a top five favorite franchise, what I mean is that the next time a video game of this family comes out, I'm like, I'm dropping my pre-order money. Like, I will absolutely buy it, no questions asked. I won't even wait for a review. I will absolutely buy this game because it's worth my time. And the types of games and the consoles that they span over all these years is actually pretty interesting as I look through this. But again, I don't think these franchises, like nothing I'm going to say is going to be one that you haven't heard of by any means, especially because, franchises are franchises. If they are a franchise, it's because they're super popular. So
It's because they're good, right? Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
and they
exactly.
won't be a surprise. So that's what I suggested, and you bit on that, and I'll be very interested in yours specifically because you're not as much of a gamer as I am these days,
Right.
probably because you've got three kids and a family and a job, and you probably don't. Uh, you're not as obnoxious as I am about carving out time to trying to play video games because I don't know, you're not 12 years old on the inside, maybe. I don't know. I feel like you are though. I just
Oh, I am. Oh, I am. For
but
sure.
for
Yeah.
whatever reason, that's what I do. Like I still try to play video games because I still love
Yeah.
it.
So yes, I do think our lists are going to be very different. I think they're going to be different though, because to your point, my list I think is going to be much older than your list. I don't have anything remotely new. Just again because I don't really game, right? So I really these days I really don't. So I went back and I looked through the podcast. We have kind of touched a similar topic twice. We have done the top five video games of
Yep.
all time,
Right.
which was way back in episode 27
Oh
in
wow.
September of 2020.
Wow.
Okay. And then we did 6 through 10 favorite video games, episode 72, September 2022. So it's been almost 2 years since we've come anywhere close to the topic of video games. Now, if you would like me to, I did go back and figure out what our top 10 games were. Again, it's a different topic. Are you interested in me reading those, or do you just want to go right into
Of
franchises?
course I'm interested in that.
Okay.
Why would you
Okay.
even ask that question?
Okay. All right. So my top 10 games, again, different than franchises.
Hmm. Hmm.
Number 10 was Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes, which is an iOS game. Number 9 is Gauntlet from the 1985, The Cabinet. Number 8 is Warcraft 2, Tides of Darkness. Number 7 was Hot Shots Golf. Number 6 was SimCity 2000. Number 5 was GoldenEye 007. Number
Nice.
4 was King's Quest 2. Number 3 was the original Diablo. Number 2 was Alex Kidd in Miracle World. And number 1 was Miss Pac-Man.
Yes. Love that.
All right. Your number 10.
Okay.
Number 10 was Super Mario World. Number 9 was Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild for the Switch. Number 8 was Batman Arkham Knight. Number 7 was Super Tecmo Bowl. Number 6 was God of War. Number 5 was Grand Theft Auto Vice City. Number 4 was Last of Us. Number 3 was Legend of Zelda Link to the Past. Number 2 was Final Fantasy 2. And we actually had the same number one, Miss Pac-Man, in the old school stand-up arcade cabinet. Um, so it'll be interesting to see how many of our top 10 games, if they do, kind of make their way into the franchises. Because obviously, Pac-Man, I don't know. Well, for me at least, Pac-Man is not a great franchise. That's a fucking amazing video game. So,
Right.
spoiler alert: Pac-Man, the franchise, is not in my top
Same.
five. So,
Same. Yeah.
okay, okay. Um, let's see. I did not come up with a honorable mention. I
No.
could probably do it off the top of my head. I didn't. And the only caveat is like this is agnostic of platform. So it could be PC, it could be console, it doesn't matter. So
Yeah.
all right. Did I lead in? Have I babbled enough to
Yes,
get us started?
absolutely you have. But I would like for you to start this list. Since I picked it, you take the honors and
Okay.
give me your number 5 favorite video game franchise of
Okay.
all time.
My number 5 video game franchise of all time is primarily based in PC. There are at this point, I don't know how many games. This is Diablo from Blizzard Entertainment.
Nice.
So this is actually still a relevant property even today in 2024. I haven't personally played it in, I mean, forever and a day. I based a lot of my list based on hours logged, game, like in game, those kind of things, right? I can't even begin to tell you how many hours I played on the original Diablo, the expansion pack to Diablo, which was called Hellfire, Diablo 2, Diablo 3. I dabbled a little bit in Diablo 4, but not really. I can't even say I've ever really played it. There's at this point there's a mobile version, all kinds of stuff, but the overwhelming majority of my time is in that original Diablo game and Hellfire and Diablo 2. This is an old school kind of dungeon crawl, very reminiscent of some of the old kind of stand up where it's just like put a quarter in, hack and slash, pick a character, those kind of things. What really got me about Diablo was the replay value. So once they introduced BattleNet, you could go online, you could play with people across the world. Believe it or not, I'm old enough where that was actually a novelty. Like that wasn't a thing when we originally started, playing video games.
Yeah.
As you will see with the rest of my top 5 list. But BattleNet really kind of changed the world, right? It was like you could log in. That's the first time that like shit talking started with other players across the country.
Yeah.
But the thing that I loved about Diablo was there were all sorts of mods to the game that people would introduce, and there was different ways that you could play it that the game designers didn't necessarily intend when you started out, right? So what I mean by that is there was a way of playing this game called Beyond Naked Maging, and what that meant was you would choose the mage character, which was essentially a wizard, and you would go around, and the whole point of the game was you would try to equip your character with the worst gear you could. You would take away as much mana, as much health, as much as potency, tenacity as you could, and still make your way through the game. There was another variant where you would play as naked maging, where it was just like no gear. You would never have any gear, never pick anything up, those kind of things. I cannot tell you how many hours I've logged on Diablo 2, Hellfire, those kind of things. Just kind of fell in love with it. It is I think it's really kind of a callback to my love for Gauntlet, which was kind of in my opinion, the first and the premier kind of dungeon crawl type game. And it also had hit me at a good time in my life. Hit me in college, right? Quite frankly, college,
Yeah.
and right after that, where I had a shit ton of time to sit down and kind of, and sit down and devote to gaming, which I really don't have today. But yeah, so Diablo is my number 5. I absolutely love that franchise.
That's awesome. I mean, that's a great choice. That's one that, because it was primarily PC, and you're not going to see a lot of games on my list that are primarily PC because I didn't have a computer. I used yours all the time. Um, so that there won't be many of those on mine, but I think that's a good choice. And I remember playing Diablo, I think it was 2 maybe at North Lane most, but I really like the perspective that you took on that. I think that it's definitely a loot heavy game. Like you're going through and you're hacking, you're slashing, you're collecting loot and all of that. And it's definitely pretty fun. I just haven't had as much experience playing with it, unfortunately, but it's it was definitely an entertaining game, and I mean it's caught so much fire across all the platforms, and I think Diablo 4 is the most recent one, and it's super popular right now. So everybody's
Yeah.
playing it.
It's funny that you say, the it's a loot heavy game. I'm looking at my list. Um, there is a very consistent through line in the type of games that I play. The other thing that's really interesting, I actually don't have a non I don't have a non PC game on my list, which is
Wow.
I
Okay.
don't have one.
That's
I don't
interesting.
have one. Yeah. So
Well, I know
so that
you're
yeah.
you're super focused on like being a completionist, so like loot heavy games make sense
Yes.
for you, I
Make a
think.
lot of exactly. It
Yeah.
makes a ton
Yeah,
of
yeah.
sense. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. So all right.
Okay.
That being said, I cannot wait because they're going to be different. What's your number 5? I can't wait.
Mine are going to be different, but based off of the top 10 that you announced, they're not going to be too surprising. So I'll just kind of go through them. But it's my number 5 is the Arkham games. It's the Arkham Asylum games. So there were, I think, 4 games in this series officially started back in 2009 by Rocksteady. These games are so much fun from a detective perspective. Like they encourage you to take the time to move around the different levels and really focus on what you can investigate and what you can uncover in terms of the lore of the Batman, mythology, if you will. And so, it's great because Mark Hamill voices the Joker and Kevin Conroy voices Batman. So there's some good Batman, history rooted in that. But the gameplay is just really fun. And I feel like maybe there was maybe there were games that came out before this one that had the same gameplay, but I don't remember them or I wasn't exposed to them if they did. But the whole sort of attack and the counterattack system that the gameplay had was really fun, and it encouraged the player to continue to level up their skills and all that stuff, and just take the time to really explore the universe. So like you've got Arkham Asylum, you've got Arkham World, you've got Arkham Knight. Those games are amazing. Like that's one of those ones that I will absolutely fork over all my money if one of those games comes out. And they take so much care and so much time to invest into the Batman, world, into everything, all the comic book stories, all the characters, so many that I've never even heard of that they bring into this game. So you don't have to just be a fan of the movies. If you have any, love for the character of Batman or Joker or any of that, it's absolutely fantastic. So that's the one I put at my number 5. The Arkham games, Arkham Asylum, Arkham World, and Arkham Knight are my absolute favorites.
So uh I've actually played a couple of those. I played the first 2, I think, and I couldn't even tell you is it Arkham Knight and
Arkham
Arkham
Asylum is the
Asylum
first.
is the first one? Okay.
Arkham
Okay.
World is the second. There's a third one that only came out on Nintendo that it's sort of an asterisk and nobody really, I mean, they count it as part of the series, but kind of
Was it a
not
different
really.
developer?
I
Am I
think that was
remembering
Ark.
that right?
Yes, it was a different developer. I think it was called Arkham Origins. But
Okay.
and then there was Arkham Knight that came out on PlayStation 4, I think it was, and that one was an absolute game changer. Like that was
Okay.
next gen console. It was, I think it featured the last time that Mark Hamill voiced the Joker, and some really cool stuff that they pulled in, like multiple Robins, right? So like Robin is
Oh,
not just
okay.
Dick Grayson, it's Jason Todd, I think
Jason
is one
Todd.
of
Yep.
them. And
Yep.
yeah, so like all of those characters are involved. There are a lot of really great surprises around every corner. Such a fantastic game.
Yeah. So I bought, and this has got to be for PlayStation. I can't remember. I bought a bundle, an Arkham bundle, and I can't remember which game was coming out,
Yeah.
but it was two or three of the games. So I've played a couple of those. Um, and I'll tell you, I enjoyed them thoroughly. I tell you why I stopped playing them because, and you've already pointed it out, I'm a completionist, and when I start a
Yeah.
game, I can't like not finish it. I can't not get 100%. I can't not go, which is the reason that I don't play some of these open world games like the Vice Cities and like those kind of things. Let me ask you a question. You mentioned um the detective, like the looking around kind of um aspect of this game. Do you enjoy that, or does it frustrate you? And what I mean by that is there were some games that I can remember, and I won't talk about them now because I have a feeling they might be on your list later. But there was some games that I remember playing in college where I remember talking to you and be like, "Hey, help me through this area," or "I'm going to go to the internet. I'm going to print out a walkthrough." And I remember it would piss you off because, like to me, well, it would piss you off in that I wouldn't take the time to like go find it,
Mm.
like go through the game. To me, that was frustrating, and I always got the sense that you enjoyed that, like that figure out the puzzle, like go into this door, open this door, go into this room, that kind of like. Do you enjoy that aspect of the game, or is that frustrating to you?
Yeah, well, first of all, I can't imagine I ever got pissed at you about a video game.
Not pissed, but you know what I mean. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Right.
But no,
Yeah.
I know what you're saying. So, what I will say is that the thing specifically about the Arkham games that I love so much is that yes, it is very well balanced between action combat and puzzle solving, but the puzzle solving and the action combat is all so very much intertwined in the lore of Batman, right? So it's all tied so well into the comic books in the universe. So I love the detective stuff. I love to like there's this when you play the first Arkham Asylum game, like you realize that you can put yourself in detective mode. So it's almost like a filter and it allows you to be able to see things on the screen in a different way. So you can see like little hidden uh whatever passages or the things that you need to access or it's the investigative part of it is half the fun because it's but it's also part of the story, right? So the story in Arkham, all of the Arkham games is really entertaining too. So the gameplay, the detective work, and the story is really a magic combination in this series that I think nobody has really been able to duplicate the same way since, for me personally.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. I I'm eagerly anticipating the rest of your list. I can't
Mm.
wait because I know it's different than mine.
I
This
think
is
it's
like,
going to disappoint you,
yeah.
but I mean,
No, it won't. No, it won't.
it's cool. All right, so I think we are at your number 4, correct?
Yes, yes, and I have to go back and correct myself again. I said that there were no console games on my list. That's not true.
You sit on a throne of lies.
I am a liar. I'm sorry. So, okay. So my number 4 is a game that I know you and I played a shit ton of together. It is a PC game. It is from ID Software and it is Doom. And
Nice.
so the Doom franchise, and I will admit, when I originally was sitting down and jotting down my list tonight, I thought there was another game or series of games that were part of this franchise, and technically they're not. But it doesn't change the fact that the Doom franchise is on my list. What I mean by that is when I originally sat down, I thought Castle Wolfenstein or the Wolfenstein games were a part of the Doom universe, and they're technically not.
They were first
But
person shooters
right,
and some of
yes,
the
and
original ones, but not tied into
right
the
to the
story
Doom,
in the
yeah,
universe.
the
Yeah.
Doom, yeah.
Yeah.
I thought they were, and I can. So Wolfenstein was the first person shooter that I ever played, and it
It
was on
was, right?
Buford's. It
I don't
was, and
think
it
there
was on.
was a first person shooter before that, was there?
And if there was, I was not aware of it. And I remember playing it. It was on Buford's PC in his dorm room.
Somebody out
And I,
there can tell us
or
differently.
yeah, I'm sure there was some. I'm sure there was a first person game out there somewhere. But again, I'm not. But again, this started my love for that kind of genre of games, right? So, Doom, Doom 2, Doom 3, Duke Nukem. There was like again Wolfenstein, Castle Wolfenstein. There was some like redneck something that we played in college.
Oh
I can't
yeah,
remember
what was that?
right. But again, that genre, right? That's what gives you things like Counter Strike, BioShock, Half-Life, Call of Duty, GoldenEye 007, which in my mind is the greatest first person shooter of all time.
Pretty good.
But again, there's not a franchise, so that's why it's not here. But again, Doom to me is one of those games that I just clocked so many hours and got so good at it that I really enjoyed the game, right? It's like, oh, like learning the maps, learning where to pick up this, learning the little Easter eggs, those kind of things. I can remember in the back of my mind hearing that, hearing the Doom Master. I can't remember what his name was in the franchise, but like hearing his voice, turning the corner and there being the big bad in front of you, those kind of things. Just this game and this franchise to me is the greatest first person shooter franchise of all time. It's my number 4. I absolutely love it.
You can't argue with that at all. I definitely remember Wolfenstein. That's the first person shooter that I ever remember. But Doom was like the next step up. And it was like kind of freaky, if I remember. Like at the
It
time,
was,
it was
yeah.
the closest thing that we had to being scared at a video game. And there's a lot more of that now, but Doom is really the one that originated that, in my opinion. I think I can't think of
It
another one.
no, it did. And Doom was the first game that I can remember where like you would go and it's going to sound silly today in 2024, but like the lights would go off in a room, like it was dark.
Yeah, yeah.
And you know what I mean? And you're like, oh shit, what happened? And you would go around a corner and there's this big fucking monster right in front of you. And it would scare the shit out of you. Like it would, it would make you jump. There was another first person shooter game that we played that was like a at another era, and it was you had like a crossbow, and it was like old medieval times. I'm not gonna remember it, but again, Doom was the one that kind of, well, it was really Wolfenstein, but Wolfenstein and Doom were the one that kind of got me into that genre of game. Candidly, the only reason I don't play them today is because I know the way I am, and I would go into it and I would get sucked into it and not be able to get out. What's the other huge one that like oh shit, I'm totally blanking on
Call of Duty?
No, it's a I mean Call of Duty is that one, but there's a think about it. Like it's the one that my kids play all the time. Where there's a storm that keeps getting closer and closer to them.
Warzone or
No.
Fortnite?
Fortnite.
Okay.
I guess Fortnite is third person versus first person,
Yeah.
but whatever.
Right.
Yeah, but it's the same concept, right? It's kind of like capture the flag war game kind of thing. So.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's a great choice.
All right. What's your number 4, sir?
So my number 4 is a franchise that I honestly haven't dipped my toes into for a little while, but it's one that when I did first get exposed to it, it absolutely changed the way that I thought about video games as a whole. And this is the Grand Theft Auto franchise. So I could argue this could be higher on the list, but for me, this is one that really is responsible for introducing me to the sort of sandbox kind of games. The franchise started back in 1997. It was my first real experience to what we call today like an open world game. Like I still remember to this day, Vice City was probably my favorite, and it's the first one that I played. But to this day, I remember playing Vice City and like, wait, I can just walk anywhere I want. I can do whatever I want. I can just steal a car, or I could do this mission or that mission. The idea of an open concept of a video game where it wasn't so linear was absolutely different. It was just next level. And I played this game, and you could drive this car, you could drive this motorcycle, you could rob this bank, you could do all these things. And it was just mind blowing. And, they have over the years really improved the quality of the game. So Vice City came out on PlayStation many years ago. God, it has to be at least 20 years ago, because I remember, I shouldn't say this, but I remember when I've been at my current company, 22 years at this point. And when I very first started there, we were a much smaller company, but we were still 24 hours. And every once in a while, I would cover an overnight shift, and I would bring in my PlayStation 2 and I would play Grand Theft Auto. I would play video games on my shift. And it was crazy how much you could explore of that world and everything that you could do. So that one is near and dear to my heart. But since then, they have only gotten better. GTA 5 was really great. GTA 6 is actually coming out next year, from what I understand. And so, like, that franchise continues to have a ton of momentum and a lot of really innovative gameplay. So yeah, that's it. It's Grand Theft Auto. It's so much fun to just run around. On top of all that, they have, you steal a car and you get to play all kinds of great music on these radio stations in the car. So you get to hear all this stuff, and you get to sort of plan your next venture, whether it's going to be this mission over here or robbing a bank over there or whatever the case may be. Super fun, all the options available. It's just never played anything like that in my life before that point.
So, which one of those games? And I'm looking on Wikipedia here, and it's got to be the original Grand Theft Auto, because I was going to say, which one would I have played with you? And it's got to be Grand Theft Auto, because like 97
Well,
was
probably
the
none of
original
them,
one.
to be honest, because the first one I ever played was Vice City, and
What was it?
that was after I graduated college. So that came out on the
Okay.
PlayStation 2, if I recall
Yes.
correctly.
Yeah. So Vice City came out in 2002, but I remember very vividly playing that game. It must have been at your house. Like, again, I don't know where or when, but so these games, I can I can completely understand why these are so high on your list. The reason I personally don't play these games is to your point, the reason because I'm a completionist, and this is the kind of game that I can't get into, because if I get into a game like this, I'm gonna, like, I mean, hours and hours and hours, like,
Yeah,
I would have to do every mission, every side quest, everything, and I would just get lost in this game forever and ever.
sure.
That being said, the times that in fact, I remember playing one of the missions, and you'll probably remember it, where you had to be on a scooter and you had to go around and like deliver pizzas. Does that ring a bell at all?
Yeah.
Is that Vice City?
I don't remember. Probably, most likely.
But
That sounds like
you had
Vice
to be
City.
on a fucking scooter, and it was like you had to deliver 31 pizzas or something ridiculous. And I'm like, why am I doing this? But like, I couldn't put it down. I had to fucking deliver every 31 pizzas or whatever, whatever it was. So
Yeah.
It was a pink scooter. I will never forget that fucking pink scooter. Anyways,
Well, Vice City is so
yeah,
great because, and Vice Cities are 22 years old at this point, which is
yeah.
insane.
It's the
Vice
sound.
City,
That was the '80s one though. The soundtrack, right?
yeah, well, so that's it,
Yeah.
right? So Vice City was heavily influenced by Scarface. So because it takes up place in Miami, and the primary character who is voiced by Ray Liotta, which at the time that was a revolutionary thing. Like I
Oh
didn't know
yeah.
video game characters would be voiced by famous actors, and there were multiple actors that I knew that were in that game. And yeah, so like it happened in the 80s. It was very 80s flavored. It was Miami Beach. It was all this stuff, and it was just such a great aesthetic that you couldn't help but have fun playing that game.
That's awesome. That's a good.
Yeah.
That's a good pick. I love that one.
All right, so your number 3, I think we are at this point.
My number three. Okay, so my number three is another PC game. I believe has been ported over the years, but it's primarily a PC, definitely a PC franchise overall. It's the second franchise on my list from Blizzard Entertainment. This is the Warcraft franchise.
Nice.
This one might be, I have to think about it. It's a toss up between this and Diablo in terms of, well, God, I don't know, just number of hours. I mean, just so many hours playing Warcraft, Warcraft 2, Warcraft, the expansion portals, those kind of things. I played the hell out of Warcraft specifically. So Warcraft Orcs and Humans came out in 1994. I remember specifically that came out like right when we were heading into college. It was relatively new at the time. Warcraft 2 Tides of Darkness came out in 1995 when we were in college. And then directly on the heels of that was Warcraft 2 Beyond the Dark Portal, which was an expansion pack. Then they really started to ramp things up. Warcraft 2 BattleNet Edition. I mentioned BattleNet when we are talking about Diablo. Then you started going into Warcraft 3, and then the world exploded when you started talking about World of Warcraft, which I never got into that. My love for this franchise is solely based on the first kind of 2 or 3 games. This is another one of those kind of like open world, build your town, build your, collect gear, collect equipment, collect wood and gold and silver and those kind of things, build up, expand, those kind of things. And I would play the levels of those games not only to beat the campaign, but I would also I would farm the entire map. So I would
Yeah.
chop down every tree. I would get every piece of gold. I would
You might
again,
have video game OCD, by the way.
oh
Has
yeah,
anyone told
yes,
you?
yeah, for sure. But I just absolutely loved playing these games. In fact, it's funny that we were talking about this topic just within the last week. I have been looking for a version of Warcraft 2 that I can play today because I want to go back and play that game. I'm happy. I would be happy to pay for it. It's not about, I'm not looking for a pirated copy of it. I want to play, I want to go back and I want to play Warcraft 2 because I just enjoyed the hell out of playing those games. And I need to invest some time and go back and see where I can find and play those games. But the Warcraft series to me, I just love it. I love kind of orcs versus humans, build those worlds, defeat your armies, that kind of thing. And again, that spanned a lot of those created a lot of those other games.
Yeah.
There was a Russian attack type game, a red, I can't remember what it was called. There's a lot of those kind of real-time strategy games where you can't fall asleep or you're going to get attacked, those kind of things. So I just love those type of games.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I remember that very specifically from our time together when we were had our life mates at 406 North Lane, and I was playing on your computer all the time, and you were playing Warcraft, and that was the first time I was ever introduced into a real time strategy game. So like I had played Final Fantasy before, which is kind of like at that time more turn based, But a real-time strategy, when everything is happening and there's a timer going and you have to be very particular about what you're doing and when you're doing it. Warcraft was the first one that ever taught me about that. And I went on to play StarCraft, which I don't know if you have played that, but it's not the same genre. Well, it's the same genre of game, but instead of like archaic Lord of the Rings stuff, it's almost more like Star Wars Aliens kind of stuff. But it's the same exact thing. You're going and you're mining resources, and then you're taking those resources and building things that you can use to attack this computer opponent who's on the other side of the map, which you can't see, and you have to kind of inch your way forward one piece at a time. Like that shit was super fun, and I never had any exposure to that until you showed me that on Warcraft. So I love that. I love that you exposed me to that. I love that game. You can absolutely, if I'm not mistaken, go to BattleNet, go to blizzard.com or whatever it is, and you can download all that stuff and you can still play all those games. Like they're still
That's awesome.
available
That makes me
through their
so happy.
portal. You need to
Yeah.
go look for it. And not to mention, it's probably cheap as fuck because nobody's
Oh, I'm sure it
playing
is. Yeah. Right.
Warcraft 2 anymore, right? So you can absolutely get that for probably 30 or $40 at the most, which is totally worth a retro gaming experience. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's a great choice. I love that.
Sweet. All right, sir. What is your number 3?
So next up for me, another one that you have already mentioned, and another one that's not surprising, but one that, God, it's just so important to me and my love for video games is the Last of Us franchise. It is, there are only 2 games, so it's really hard to call it a franchise. Technically it is, but there are only 2 games. Naughty Dog is the developer behind this, and I just can't say enough good things about what this franchise is because, the gameplay is probably not, super innovative by any chance. It's really good and it's fun, but at the same time it's basic enough. But the what makes this series great is the storytelling. It's 100% the storytelling. I mean, if I've ever come close to crying at a video game, it is this one because the story is so incredibly compelling and it's so good. And it spawned obviously a hit series on HBO Max, which is 1 season in. I think a second series is coming out, and I believe Naughty Dog is going to make a third game. They haven't come out and said it yet, but I really think it's going to happen. It really can't. Like they have to kind of finish it. But oh my God, this series is so, so good. And I know it's tough for you because this is primarily console based. It's not PC based. It takes a lot of time to get invested in what's going on here. But I can't I can't glow over this enough. Like it is absolutely worth the time. It is such a great story. It is so emotional. It was worth every beat that went through. As a gamer and as a father, I think it really hits a lot of beats that are really important. And it made me so happy to play a video game and feel like I was part of the experience, like I was watching a movie versus just hitting a button and watching somebody jump all the time. Like it's not that kind of experience. It's something way, way deeper than that. And I can't say enough about it. The Last of Us.
I've not played. I know you've raved about these games for years now, and I've not played any of them. Like a third person? Is this a Resident Evil type game? Like what is the
It's third person. So
is it
you're
okay.
not, it's not first person. It's not a
Okay.
shooter, quote unquote.
Right.
It's, the camera is behind the guy and you're walking through and it's sort of, it's kind of a nice hybrid between, your first person shooters and your Arkham games where you are puzzle solving as much as you are in an action scenario. But I will say that more so than GTA, more so than the Arkham games, the story is just incredible. You're enveloped into what's going on with these characters in a way that is next level compared to anything I've ever seen with a video game, and more so than what I've seen in a lot of TV shows or movies. So yeah,
All right. I'll put it on my list. One of
do
these
it.
days
You've
I'll have
got to
some
do it,
time.
man. I
Yeah.
know it's everything's timing, when you got families and you got priorities, it's tough to do, but god damn, man, this game is so good. This
So
series is so good.
so it's funny, it's sad.
Yes.
You know, my oldest boy is turned 18 the day after your birthday.
Yeah.
So I've got an 18-year-old. He's going to be a senior next year.
18?
And
He's not 18.
he's 18.
No, he's
18
12.
years he's 18 years
He's
old.
got to be 12.
And my sophomore is 16 years old. So I've got 2 years, and I'm going to be down to I'm going to be down to one kid at home, right? And so I'm there was a time on the horizon where I'm going to have some time, like more time than I have now. And I've got this kind of mental checklist of what am I going to do, like, and I've got some gaming, and I've got some movies, but I've got some franchises that I'm going to explore purely based on your recommendations over the years. And this is very, very high on the top of my list. So
I hope you do.
yeah.
I hope it doesn't take too long, just because I'm sure the technology and gaming will, explode between now and
Yeah.
then and all that stuff. But I mean, if anything, watch the show. Like, if you're interested in it at all, watch the show. I guess I would recommend playing the game before the show,
I
because
was going to say
obviously
this.
if you do one, then the other one's, it's going to
Right.
be spoiled. So
Right.
it depends on what's more intriguing to you. If you want to solve the mystery of what is this story and why should I be interested, you're going to get that answer much more quickly if you watch the show. But if you play the
Okay.
game, and really invest the time, it's a whole another dimension of getting
Yeah.
to enjoy the story, but also having some control over it. So it's fun.
Okay. All right. Like I said, it's on my list.
Yeah.
I can't wait.
Okay. We are at your number 2.
Yeah. So my number 2 is a console game. Again,
Finally.
right. Finally, right. So this, let's see, I'm sorry, console franchise. There also is PC versions of this, but I came to this through a console. Let's see, I'm trying to find which game I started with. Well, I won't bury the lead. This is the Hitman series of games.
Oh, nice. That's a great choice.
Yeah, so the Hitman series is pretty self-explanatory. You are a hitman. You have to go out and you're a contract killer, right? So you get a group of people that you need to kill. There are things you need to do to go about doing it. There are multiple ways you can go about, and you can accomplish your mission multiple ways, and you get scores based on how you carry out the mission. And so the first Hitman game that I ever played, I'm pretty sure it was the original one. It was in 2000, Hitman Codename 47. And I can remember it very vividly because my brother actually got it for Christmas. And I remember it. He was living at my parents' house at the time. Amanda and I were in town from Virginia, and we played the hell out of that game the first 48 hours that he got it. And then I got it when I was living in Washington DC, and I don't know, I probably got 4 or 5 of the games over the years. But and as we have talked about a couple times on this podcast, I play games a little bit differently, right? So it's like, not only do I have to complete the mission, but I have to kill every single person on the board. I have to do it in a stealth manner. Like I can't just shoot them in the head. I have to go and have to, slit their throat or whatever it is. And I would restart that fucking level 73 times
Yeah.
so that I could get this one guy behind the bush that I forgot the first time, those kind of things. But so Hitman has spawned, God, I don't even know how many games at this point. 1, 2, 3, 4, 10, 12 different titles at this point. There's 2 different movies. The first movie was a Timothy Oliphant movie, which if you haven't played and aren't invested in the video game, it's kind of a shitty movie. if you enjoy the video game series, it's actually a pretty good. It's a pretty good movie. It's worth watching, in my opinion. In fact, I was looking at clips of it tonight, kind of in preparation for this podcast. Third person, actually, you can determine whether you're third or first person. I always play it in third person, primarily on PlayStation 3, I'm guessing. Yeah, but this is the Hitman series. I absolutely love this series. Just so many. It was the closest thing to an open world game that I've ever had on my list. So I love it.
Yeah, I think that's a great choice. I definitely I played Hitman 3. I remember that one very specifically, and that was super fun. It's it's incredibly challenging because it starts with a very limited scope, like, kill this person, but do these other things in order to complete the level with 100% completion and unlock this special suit or unlock this gun or whatever.
Yep.
But then the scope of these missions would get much, much bigger. Hitman 3, I remember very specifically, was very overwhelming. I got to this mission where it was like at a racetrack or something, and you had to kill this person, but you had to go around, like the map was pretty big. So everything is very heavily reliant on like timing. Like if you're going to do all of these specific tasks in a given mission, you got to be at the right place at the right time. And it's challenging because you'll fail a lot in the beginning and then you got to figure out sort of what to do along the way, and you have to do it in a very crisp fashion, because if you don't, then you'll alert authorities or you'll do somebody will come after you and it screws up your whole game plan. But yeah, I think that's great. I think there are like 8 games in that series at this point, but that's one that could keep going for sure. With every
Oh yeah.
iteration, with every new console that comes out, there needs to be another Hitman game. In fact, the last one is, I think Hitman 3 was 2021, and we're in 2024. Like we're ready for another Hitman game for
We're due.
sure.
Yeah, there's to your point, you would go and fail. There's a lot of there's a lot of Groundhog's Day
Yeah,
in that game, right? It's
trial
like
and
I'm
error.
I'm
Yeah, for sure.
right. Yeah, it's like I'm gonna go here, and then oh shit, I got killed by this guy, or oh shit, I I
Right.
I I alerted that guy, and then I have to do the whole fucking mission again, and then do something different.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a choose your own
Or
adventure.
go
Yeah,
and change clothes so nobody
right.
recognizes you, and then you gotta go poison this guy, but you can't shoot this guy. And even though you have the weaponry to, just go and mow down everybody, the idea is that you're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to do this in a very much concealed
Stealthy.
fashion.
Yeah,
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 stealthy.
stealthy way.
It's
Yeah.
good.
So, all right, we're getting down to it. What's your number two, sir?
So my number two is, okay. These last two are not going to be surprising by anyone standards, but I, growing up, my first console was Atari, but my second one was Nintendo, and Nintendo was really what formed my love for gaming, as well as my introduction to gaming franchises, right? Because that didn't really happen as much before then. So I will say that the number two for me is the Mario franchise. The Super Mario franchise, whatever you want to call it. This started back in 1981, I guess, if you want to throw it all the way back to Donkey Kong, when he was not even known as Mario, he was Jumpman. And since then, there have been more than 20 games that have spanned pretty much every single Nintendo platform that has come out since then. And when I say 20 games, I mean like that's like 20 games where he's sort of the primary character. That doesn't even include all the spin-offs and bootlegs and ports and all the other stuff. But the the Mario games are the most fun. I remember getting the original Nintendo Entertainment System in the late 80s and just playing Super Mario Brothers, and that was incredible. It was so much fun. It was so vibrant. All the graphics and everything were so cool. And then everything has really graduated so nicely since then. The Super Nintendo, I have very, very fond memories of Super Mario World on the Super Nintendo, and the sort of the next level gameplay that it had. Like the graphics and the sound were obviously better, but Now you've got this giant map that you can navigate around and play through all these levels. And then things just kind of kept going from there. They had Super Mario Kart, they had Super Mario Party, they had all these games, and every single system, whether it was the Super Nintendo to the GameCube to the Wii to the now the Switch is the primary console for Nintendo, every single one of these has a flagship game that is tied to Mario. And it's incredibly impressive how consistent they are with that franchise. There is no game in that franchise that I think is bad in terms of the primary games. They have role playing games, they have everything. And it's just super great. The last one that I played, and I think the last one they came out with, Super Mario Odyssey, I believe, for the Nintendo Switch, they just don't, they're not bad. They're fantastic games, and they have adapted through the graduation from 2D platformers, horizontal side scrollers to the 3D world where you can go anywhere and do anything, and it's a little bit more open world. And they've just done an absolutely phenomenal job of all of the branding for Nintendo. Like that has got to be, if not their flagship, then one of their flagship series. And I loved it. Absolutely.
I mean, Mario is synonymous with Nintendo, right? I mean, there isn't, in my opinion, there isn't a more well-known, more important character or franchise to Nintendo. Like without Mario, you don't have Nintendo, do you? Like I just can't.
Right. He is the character. Like
He is Nintendo.
If they pick anybody to be the face
Yeah.
of Nintendo, it's absolutely Mario.
Yeah. So growing up, I was an Atari and a Sega guy. That being said, everybody around me had a Nintendo, right? And I would go over, and I can remember very vividly playing Super Mario Brothers, Super Mario World, Super Mario 2, all of those games. I can remember very vividly, and you'll appreciate this, playing Super Mario Brothers. That's the one, like dun, 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 dun. That's
Yeah.
the one,
Yeah.
right? Like, okay,
Yep.
Super Mario Brothers. I can remember very vividly playing that video game in Carlos Pizza Bazaar as my brand new girlfriend walked into Carlos as Love Walks In played over the jukebox. That's the video game. That's the console game
Oh,
that I was
wow.
playing. That's the console game that I was playing. As my love walked into that Pizza Bazaar. But yeah, I mean, good God. I mean, Mario Kart 64. Good
Yeah.
God. How many hours did we log playing
Insane.
Mario Kart? I mean,
Insane. On the Super
yeah.
Nintendo, we played so much. I think on the GameCube, we played a bunch too. And that one kind of, I mean, I guess that fits in the franchise because I think more of the side scrollers
Yeah.
for Mario are the ones that really hooked me. But I love how they took that brand and that character and they explored it in different areas and still made it just as fun. I mean, taking Mario into Mario Kart, it was incredible. It was crazy.
Yeah.
And it's still to this day like its own sort of sub franchise, I guess,
Yeah,
to
for
any
sure.
Nintendo system. Like if a new Nintendo system comes out, you're gonna get a Mario game right out of the gate, and eventually you'll get a Mario Kart
A
game
kart game.
as
Yeah.
well. Yeah. And
Yeah.
it's so cool what they've been able to do with that. It's so much
Yeah.
fun and so universally appealing for everybody. All right, so
Yeah.
that's my number two. I think we're at your number one. Is that where we are at this point? What is your number one? I mean, gosh, I have to think about if I could even guess. I mean, maybe I
Go
could.
ahead.
I don't know.
You got to guess? You want to
Well,
try?
I don't know. Well, can you recap your list?
Yeah, I will recap my list. So, number 5 is Diablo. Number 4 is Doom. Number 3 is Warcraft. Number 2 is Hitman. And I'm at number 1. I can tell you it's a PC. It is a PC franchise.
Okay. That would be, I'm sure if I thought about it hard enough, I would get it.
Probably.
But I don't think I know.
That's fine. That's yeah.
So
yeah.
please,
So
please.
yeah. So my so this is a franchise that my love of the franchise started long before I was in college. It started in it started in the mid 80s. This is a franchise from Sierra. This is the King's Quest
Oh,
franchise.
okay. Yeah, I should have got that one, I think.
Yeah.
I know I've heard you talk about that many
Yeah.
times.
So the King's Quest franchise for me, I can remember playing this franchise on my very first home computer, which was an IBM PC XT. It was 10 times as big as the Mac that I'm talking on today. It had 256 KB. It had the 512 floppy disks. It was it was a beast of a computer. In order to play King's Quest 2, which was the first game that I of this franchise that I had, it had 8 floppy disks, and every time you would move from screen to screen, the computer would load, and then every once in a while it would say, hey, replace disk 2 with disk 3 or with disk 8 or whatever it was. um so it was you would use your mouse as you would go around click and interact with things, but then when you would interact with something, then you had to type what you wanted to do. So it would be like, you would click on the chest, open door, close door, pick up key, like those kind of things. um, they have subsequently gone back and they have upgraded those versions of those games, King's Quest 1 through 4 or 5. I do think they actually have console versions of them now. I never played them on there, but these were this was an open world ish, meaning you could do whatever you wanted to do, right? You could go wherever you wanted to go. You had these quests that you had to go on, um, but you could go about them any way that you saw fit. Um, this spawned other franchises, Space Quest, Leisure Suit Larry, all sorts of
Yeah.
other types of games like this. King's Quest is itself, Wizard and the Princess, King's Quest 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, Mask of Eternity, and then King's Quest The Odd Gentleman. So it spans from 1980 to 2016, which is like it's almost what 40 some years. I mean, it's an amazing run, um, by Ken and Roberta Williamson, if I remember correctly. Williams, were the game designers. Just I can't think of a franchise that I spent more time with. They did a really good job of bringing in kind of characters from lore, right? Like Little Red Riding Hood and the Jack and the Beanstalk and
Oh, cool.
Poseidon, and like like kind of mythical characters. Dracula was in King's Quest 3, where you had to break into Dracula's castle, uh make sure that he was asleep, go down into his dungeon, create spells and potions, and you had to kill him. Like, it was just all sorts of um really, really cool gameplay that made you think, made you fail, made you try other things. Again, King's Quest, I absolutely to this day on the 406 North Lane Facebook page, King Graham is my little avatar that I use a lot. Right now I've got Stone Cold Steve Austin, but a lot of times I use King Graham from King's Quest 2. He's the character that you kind of play as throughout the majority of this franchise. Love King's Quest.
That's awesome. That's super cool. That's sadly, that's the one on your list that I don't think I have any experience with, but one that I feel like if I sat down and said, all right, I'll give this a shot, I would probably really love it because I feel like you and I have very similar tastes in the types of video games. Maybe not the same video games, but the types of video games that we like to play. So I think that that's really great. I definitely had a PC when I was younger. but that one never really came across my radar. I mean, I had always heard of it, but I never had a chance to play it. But
Yeah, I think at this point, almost 40 years later, I think you would have a hard time getting past the fact that it's so antiquated. But to your point, you would really enjoy the puzzle solving aspect, the open world aspect, the fact that you can kind of solve things in multiple ways. You know what I mean? Like there wasn't one way through those games. Yeah, I do think if had you had come to those games, 30 years ago, I think you really would have enjoyed them.
yeah, and I still think it would probably be fun. So if I get a chance, it might be something worth
Yeah.
exploring. Is it only? But it's only on PC, right? Like you can't get those through consoles, right?
No, I no, you actually can get
Oh,
them
really?
through, you can. Yeah, you can't. I mean, obviously the gameplay is very different, but you can get them NES, PlayStation. Yeah, there are definitely console versions of these games for sure.
So if
Yeah.
I'm willing to invest some time and get myself invested into one of these games, where should I begin?
I would start with King's Quest 1.
Okay,
I
so
would
start at the
I would
beginning.
start there. I would start at the beginning. Yes, for sure.
Okay, all
So,
right.
all right, we have arrived, sir. You're number one. I think I know,
You
but
do. You
I
do.
can't wait.
You know
I'm
what
I'm
it
looking
is.
forward to it.
It
I
is the
think I do.
most obvious number one choice for video game franchise. But well, I mean, I think it is. I assume that it is for you. But this has been the one that has been the most consistent for all the years that I've been playing these games, going all the way back to 1986. It is The Legend of Zelda. It is. I mean, say what you want about Nintendo. Nintendo has had a very interesting history of innovation in terms of their games and their platforms. Their games themselves haven't innovated as much as their platforms, I think, is maybe fair to say. But they have two flagship, uh, you know, properties, and one is Mario, which I just stated, and the other one is The Legend of Zelda. And I think the thing that really sets this apart for me, in my opinion. Now, I have not played every Legend of Zelda game that has come out, but every single Legend of Zelda game that I have played has been nothing short of fantastic. Like they clearly understand that this is a big part of their brand, and if they fuck this up, it's gonna be bad, right? And so it's no surprised that it is so sacred in a way, almost more so than Mario. I think it just has almost a perfect record of games, that have spanned, again, just like Mario, every single Nintendo platform that has existed. And I loved the original Legend of Zelda game back in 1986. I still remember playing that with my buddy Dave, who we've talked about on this podcast. I had great fun playing with that. And going all the way up to Tears of the Kingdom, which just came out a few years ago, which is just a next level game for the Nintendo Switch. It is absolutely phenomenal. It was very sandboxy, but also kept your interest in terms of, creation and storytelling and all of the stuff. The Legend of Zelda series is damn near flawless. It's not completely flawless. They have some in there that I either haven't played or not piqued my interest a whole lot. But anytime, I mean, the greatest compliment that I think that I could pay Nintendo is that I'm don't see myself buying a lot of consoles, new consoles in my future as a damn near 50-year-old man. Like I probably won't buy too many more consoles. But by God, if they come out with a new Legend of Zelda game and say that it's on a new console, I would buy a new console for a new Legend of Zelda game because I just have that much confidence in the quality of the product that they put out, and they have not disappointed. The games only get better. Breath of the Wild was a huge one for the Nintendo Switch. Tears of the Kingdom was better. It really, really was. Now, the stories aren't super complicated, but all the gameplay and all the different things that you can do just really envelop you into what's going on. In my opinion, it's just an absolutely fantastic franchise.
So, yeah, I I totally understand why this franchise holds the place in your heart that it does, and the place on your list that it does. I think it's really ironic or funny or whatever that like you really haven't ever played my number one, and I really haven't ever played yours.
Wow, that is
I mean,
crazy. We have to
I
make a
again,
pact then, right? So
I know,
we gotta,
yeah,
we gotta, we
I
gotta
know,
fix this.
right. I know I've said I was a Sega Atari guy, so I
Yep.
never had a Nintendo, and the Zelda games, for as much as I sat and watched people play Zelda, that's not really a game that you can kind of go over to somebody's house and just kind of play a little bit, right? You know, like I would go over, I'd play Russian Attack, I would play Castlevania,
Great game, by the way. Yeah.
I would play Mario, but I would never sit down and start a Zelda game because I was like, ah, fuck it, I'm not going to keep a saved game on somebody else's console, right?
Mhm.
So I really have never played any of the Zelda games. My son's name is not. I wish it was, but it's not based on. My son's name is Link. I wish it was based on Zelda. It's not.
It's either that or
Um,
Encino Man. So
right, right.
I'd go with Zelda
I'll
if
go
I
with
were you.
Zelda. Right, yeah. Um, but 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 again, the fact that you hold this franchise in such high regards makes me want to go out of my way to play
You
that
should.
franchise.
You
Yeah,
should.
yeah, yeah.
Motherfucker, I'm telling
Now,
you.
now let me ask you this: does that franchise? I'll ask you the same question. Where do I start? Do I go back to the beginning? Do I like are they so antiquated that it's not worth it? Do they build on each other? Like
Well,
what is that?
so that's a great question because
Yeah.
no, the answer in my opinion is they do not build on each other.
Okay.
Every one of them is sort of a self-contained game that you
Okay.
don't necessarily, well, I think so anyways. Like I'll be honest, I haven't played all of the, almost 20 games that they have come out with because I didn't have all the systems. I didn't have all the consoles that they were out on. But I will say that if you're going to start anywhere, I would start with A Link to the Past. I think that was the greatest game that they put out. That was in 1991. That was the Super Nintendo, the one and only, if I remember correctly, game that they put on the Super Nintendo, the Link to the Past. Such a great game. So no, you don't have to go in any sort of order. It doesn't require that. The original Legend of Zelda game is actually really fun too. But if you play Link to the Past, you're probably going to be like, why would I go back to Legend of Zelda? Because it's basically an upgraded version of the original in sound and graphics and gameplay and everything. But the original is also very fun and very good. But then I would absolutely skip forward to also Skyward Sword, which is the one that came out in 2011. That came out on the Nintendo Wii. And that was a really fun game. I love that. That's sort of unique to that system. But I suppose if you had a Switch or if there would be ways to play that, outside of having a Wii, which most people don't have. But then Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom are the two most recent games that came out for the Nintendo Switch. Those are absolutely incredible. Just the fun things that you can do, the amount of time that you can spend just going anywhere and doing anything is it's one of the few sandbox games I just didn't care what I was doing as long as I was playing the game.
As you were
That
playing,
was fun
yeah,
enough. Whereas
yeah.
other sandbox games are like, no, I got to stick to the main quest, or I've got to stick to a side quest that would get me an item that would help me better towards the main quest. I just love turning on Zelda and just being a part of that world. And I think that's the biggest compliment that I can give it because that's not usually my gaming personality, if you will.
That's awesome. Yeah. So sounds like we both have some gaming to do in our futures
Absolutely.
to get caught up. So I know we didn't do honorable mentions, and I'm not going to spring one on you, but
Ooh,
I'm not. But one franchise that I'm shocked that wasn't on either of our lists because we both have spent a considerable amount of time with it together
I think I know
is
where you're going.
is Final Fantasy. Like
Yes, 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 yes.
it wasn't there, right? From Chrono Trigger all the way. I like I don't know. I thought for sure it was gonna be on your list. I thought about it for sure just because of Even though, again, I've said it several times on this podcast, I wasn't a Nintendo guy, but once I got to college, I went back and I played, what was it, Final two, three, four, five, and six. And at this point, I don't know how many there are. There's like 15 or 20 of them.
Yeah.
I don't know. I wanted to call that one out, as I was shocked that it wasn't on either of our lists, just because I know what an awesome franchise that one is.
Yeah, it's an excellent point. I think the reason, and I thought about it for sure, obviously that came across my radar. The reason that I didn't really put it out there is because I love two of those games, but I haven't played hardly any of the other ones.
Since then, yeah.
And it is morphed, as many games have, into sort of an MMO type world where it's all online, it's all this different kind of thing. Like, I'm old school in the sense that I love the turn-based combat of Final Fantasy 2 slash Final Fantasy 4, and I love the stories. I love that aspect of it. And I don't need to play with other people. Like, sometimes I just love a really good single player campaign.
Yeah.
I like a linear story that kind of goes along that way. And that's why I think Final Fantasy 2 for the Super Nintendo was one of the greatest games that has ever been made, period. And as much as I did love that, and the sequel Final Fantasy 3, I just didn't feel right putting the franchise on there because I haven't played hardly anything else. And I couldn't do it for that reason.
No,
But that's a good one.
And that's totally fair. Like I said, you were the one that introduced me to those, and again, I played Final Fantasy maybe 2, 3, and 4. I haven't played any of them either since then. I don't know. I just thought, yeah, it was. I wanted to bring it up. So,
No,
well,
it's totally fair. And another one that I think is
yeah,
worth mentioning that didn't end up on any of ours, there were no sports franchises, right? So
no,
there was no Madden. I mean, I think Madden is, I don't think either one of us have played a Madden game in a long time, but man, we all spent our time with those games at one point. Those really
yes,
shaped the way that we thought about sports video games for a long time. So it's hard not to mention that, but at the same time, it's different now. I'm not in that world
yeah,
anymore as much as I used
yeah.
to.
Yeah, I know the Madden games were good. We played a shit ton of college football, whatever that franchise was.
Yeah, yeah.
Obviously, Tecmo Bowl. We played a boatload of those. What was the baseball game that we played a shit ton of with Fajardo from the Texas
World
Rangers?
Series Baseball
World,
94, if I remember correctly,
the,
is the one that we would get drunk and come home and play that and listen to Jacko Pierce all the time.
there you go. Well, I tell you what, I wasn't quite sure coming into this podcast how much we would, but I think we did almost 2 hours, so that's pretty fucking awesome.
Of course.
Close, yeah. So, hey, this was awesome. You got any closing thoughts? Or are you ready to shut it down?
Closing thoughts. I want to play some more. Well, I'll close with one of the video games I'm playing right now, which is really fun, that I really
Yeah.
enjoy. It's called Helldivers 2. It's a very popular video game right now. It's interesting because it's kind of a third-person shooter game that is very different from like the Call of Duty type games, whereas it's completely co-op. It's not person versus person. It's a couple guys that jump on a map and they go shoot bugs, or they go shoot robots or whatever. And it's really fun. And it's a community of people who, um, the developers of the game are constantly putting out new goals for their entire community to reach. So it's like, go to this planet and shoot a million bugs or whatever it is. And if the entire community gets there, then they release specific rewards for people. And it's really fun. It's a cheaper game, and it's making all kinds of headlines for just being really fun. It's very much of the Super Troopers. I'm sorry, not Super Troopers, Starship Troopers vein, where it's very tongue in cheek, very comedic sci-fi type stuff, where it's like you get shot and all kinds of funny things happen as a result. So super fun game. If for those of you who are listening who are interested in shoot 'em up games, but not necessarily your super sweaty lobbies where people are getting really frustrated and you're getting your ass kicked by a 12-year-old. Like, this is a different kind of thing. They encourage playing as a team versus you're not supposed to shoot each other in this game. In fact, there is friendly fire, so you're not supposed to do that. So, yeah, I thought that was great. I really like that game. So I thought I'd give that a shout out.
Cool. All right, my friend. Well, we are marching slowly but surely towards episode 100. I know we talk about it all the time. We got to figure out what we're going to do for that illustrious episode. I'm looking forward to it. We're on our way.
Yes,
we'll get there.
We'll
get there in 2024.
So excited.
Sure. So, all right. That being said, that's Mr. Pip. I'm Chewie. This has been the 411 from 406. Aloha.
Adios.
Job's done.